Hello and welcome to Balderdash Academy. I'm your headmaster, Bob LeBlanc. Joining me, as always, is our faculty head of English Language Arts, Molly McGill.
So good to see you all again.
Head of Guidance, Mr. Nate Green.
Hello again, I am still here.
Head of Home Ec and Wellness, Marie Stewart Harmon.
Hello, friends and neighbors.
And our reigning champion, Coach Steve Corning.
Let's go, Dashers! What's up?
Our visiting professor today is David Hanright, performing and visual arts teacher at Thornton Academy, artist, actor, carpenter, board member of the Maine Drama Council, state representative for the New England Drama Council from Maine, comedy playwright, and artistic director and co-founder of Maine Repertory Theater, an improviser with the Chamber of Comedy.
There's more. Is there more?
I feel like
There's a lot more.
President of the Galactic Council?
And one hell of a guy.
So Dave has agreed to be our scorekeeper tonight while our faculty competes for the coveted reigning champion banner. They will perform a series of challenges. At the end of each challenge, Dave will assign points to the competitor he feels is most worthy. He's not looking for the correct answer, but the best answer. The points are arbitrary and can be given to anyone for any reason. At the end of the show, the faculty member with the highest points total will be named the reigning champion again. Our current reigning champion is Coach Steve Corning.
That's unbelievable. I totally forgot I won because, I never expected it to happen.
You're not alone. You are not alone.
All right. That sound means it is now time for our pop quiz. Our first pop quiz is from Professor Molly McGill, English Language Arts. Molly?
Thank you, Bob. Faculty, it is so wonderful to see you all again. David, thank you for joining us. As you all know, we start our meetings off with a trivia word. So today I will read a trivia word, and our faculty will tell me what they believe this word means, David. And then I'm going to have you choose which one you think is the best. Our word of the day today is ascoslia. Ascoslia. Today's word is ascoslia. Marie.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a certain type of cushion made for therapeutic couches. The asclosia, it cups your gluteus maximus in such a way that helps your spine stay straighter rather than slouching into your couch. Recommended by doctors everywhere.
Don't want to slouch in a couch? No, ma'am. Steve, Coach Steve, what do you got?
Well, as you guys know, I try to think of myself as a stylish dresser. And, you've seen me wear all sorts of things around my neck. That sounds suggestive, but it's not. I've worn necks and I've worn necks around my neck. I've worn neckties.
This is going really well.
I've worn bandanas that kind of fall off your head and you wear it around your neck for a little bit. That sort of thing. But one thing I have never actually gotten into are, of course, ascots. And ascots, the reason I've never tried them or dabbled in ascots, as they say on the street, is wearing them too often could cause ascoslia. It's a terrible disease where your neck starts to look hideous without an ascot on it. Ascoslia.
Scolia. Great.
Oh, that word. Thank you.
That's all right. It's an ascot disease. I love that.
Exactly.
A disease caused by ascots. Just traumatic, really. Nate?
Ascoslia, or ascoslia, depending upon your regional dialect. Dialect?
Direct. Woo!
Diuretics. It is, it's actually a sailing term. And it's used, first came into use in like the 1600s, I think. And it's a term for ghost ships. So ships that have been known to have sank. However, they're still seen floating the waters in the mist. And the recent governmental findings have kind of been released recently through FOIA, and there was one notice as recently as, I believe, a month ago. But it's not getting a lot of attention because, there's not a lot of cruise ships right now. Escolia.
Escolia, great.
That's
Ghost
what I
ship.
said.
We're so close every time.
Thank you, Nate. Bob, Escolia.
Well, as headmaster of the school, I see a lot of medical issues come down the pike, and this happens to be one of them. Ascoslia is when a person denies cause and effect. Ascoslia is when a person believes that something can happen without a root cause. A spontaneous event, if you will. We see this a lot in parents, specifically with students who are perfect at home but monsters at school.
Yes, thank you. Spontaneous events from Bob. Escolia. So, David, we have Escolia from Marie being a cushion that hugs the buttocks. From Coach Steve, we have a neck disease caused by wearing too many ascots or wearing them too frequently. From Nate, we have ghost ships roaming the seas. And from Bob, we have spontaneous events. David, what do you think?
Well,
You like the best.
I know the root word in there sounds like ass, but to be honest with you, it is about ghost ships because I'm an ancient ghost ship theorist. I didn't know you know that. So I'm going to award Nate 14 rupees.
Oh no. It's starting early
Nate,
tonight,
14
guys.
rupees.
You know it's going to be a bad night when Nate gets the first point.
Well, yet again, faculty, you have not studied the words I have given you before today's faculty meeting, and I'll have you know that Escolia means a sporty dance in which the dancer hops on one leg on a greased wineskin. Something that we should all practice.
I often hop on greased wineskins.
We knew that about you, Bob.
I'm
All right.
wearing greased wineskins. Thank you.
There you go. All right, well, our first game is called Four Questions. So on 3 occasions, Dave has visited Stratford and London, England for workshops with the Royal Shakespeare Centre. So in honor of our visiting professor, we have 4 questions about Shakespeare. Whichever one of our faculty members gives the best, not necessarily the correct, but the best answer, Dave will award points. Our first question. What term was coined by George Bernard Shaw to illustrate the reverence held by many Victorians for anything Shakespeare? What term was coined by George Bernard Shaw to illustrate the reverence held by many Victorians for anything Shakespeare? Molly, what do you have?
Hassenpfeffer. All right, so they were just so overcome with emotion. It's not so much of it is a term, but it's not so much of something you use in conversations. It was more of a guttural reaction. There would be something so moving on stage, and they were all just watching it together, and there was just an audible and they just it just moved them, and that became the term, and it just stuck.
Hassenpfeffer. Hassenpfeffer.
Can you repeat the question one more time, Bob?
Sure. What term was coined by George Bernard Shaw to illustrate the reverence held by many Victorians for anything Shakespeare? Marie.
Thy powdered nose is up. In the Victorian time, there was the royal family. They powdered their faces and had a very pale complexion. And to the rest of society, in order to try to maintain that authoritarian royalty, they would powder their noses. Now, this is a very different thing today, but back in George Bernard Shaw time, thy nose is powdered up is the phrase.
Thy nose is powdered up, which was also popular in California in the 80s. Nate, what do you have?
GBS came up with a shackle pie, which is really, it was kind of a term of endearment because pie was a very big, meat pie, pumpkin pie, cutie pie. They had a lot of different pies, and so everybody loved them. There was one for everybody, even a vegan pie, I'm sure. And everybody loved Shakespeare. The best thing to do, it kind of morphed into Netflix and chill, is to have a pie while watching Shakespeare. And he just came up with a shackle pie because it was like you were shackled in to that Shakespeare with your pie.
Shackle pie. So instead of Netflix and chill, you have shackle pie with my meat pie. Mm-hmm. That works. Steve, what do you have?
This is not a super common phrase here today, but you might hear it occasionally, and it has kind of stood the test of time. It's, of course, this homie on fleek. Now, our boy, Georgie boy, Shaw, he knew a lot about Shakespeare. He knew about how his countrymen felt about Shakespeare, and he really wanted to coin a phrase that would last the generations. And such a moving phrase that it would kind of disappear for decades, only to reappear spontaneously. So this homie on fleek is, of course, coined by George Bernard Shaw.
Shakespeare coined tons of terms. Why not George Bernard Shaw?
Yeah.
So, Dave, we have Molly with Hasenpfeffer. We have Marie with Thy Powdered Noses Up. We have Nate with Shackle Pie and Steve with Dis Homie on Fleek. How would you like to score that?
Well, Steve, I have to tell you, I don't think it was Shaw that coined something.
Oh yeah, let me check my notes here.
You missed that. He did in fact have a penchant for noses, so Marie's winning 5 gold bars.
Ooh,
Marie, 5 gold bars.
5 gold bars.
What's the exchange rate on that?
It's about the same as the rupees.
Okay,
so there you go. All right, so the actual answer was bardolatry. Bardolatry. So we have a multiple choice question. You can throw out any answer, could be the right one. Here we go. In the 1956 movie Forbidden Planet, loosely based off The Tempest, they introduced what sci-fi staples? In the 1956 movie Forbidden Planet, loosely based off The Tempest, they introduced what sci-fi staples? Steve, what do you got?
It's Jar Jar Binks. A lot of people think
Jar Jar Binks.
Jar Jar Binks was, of course, created by George Lucas for the film Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. But it actually predates that by quite a long time. And Jar Jar Binks was kind of a mistake that had been made over and over throughout the decades by sci-fi directors. Jar Jar Binks.
Science fiction worthy mistakes. Marie, what do you have?
This occurred because they had lost several people when they tried to take their ship out into an actual hurricane to try to recreate the storm that the boat washes up on or during. So they decided, maybe we shouldn't let any more of our crew and actors get killed out in a hurricane. So they created the very first inside thunderstorm.
Inside Thunderstorm. Mm-hmm. Great guess. Molly, what do you have?
Those are both wonderful guesses. However, it was actually a bunch of writers and sound tech were sitting around one day being like, look, it's these gunfights are not going the way we want them to. They don't have the impact they do. They don't have the emphasis. They're not moving people. What do we need to do? And they came up with the pew, 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 pew guns, as they call it in the industry, sci-fi in particular, the pew, pew guns.
Pew, pew for you and you and you. Nate, what do you have?
Actually, I agree with Molly's pew pew gun theory because I think that the lasers were what started, but but I need to go with something different because I hate taking her side.
You don't want to steal her pupothesis.
Exactly. So I'm going to say it's nobody can hear you scream in space, when scientifically, yes, people can hear you scream in space, but there's just nobody there to hear it. It's like if there's a tree in the woods, can anybody hear the tree talk? If nobody's there,
So if
I
a tree talks in the woods, can anybody really know if you're hallucinating?
Exactly.
All right, Dave, you have Steve with Jar Jar Binks, Marie with the first Inside Thunderstorm, Molly with the Pew Pew Pew, and Nate with No One Can Hear You Scream. How would you like to score? How would you like to score that?
I love Nate's answer, but he should have sided with Molly because pew pew guns are our thing. And,
I agree.
Pew pew.
I'm going to give her 5 gold bars as well.
Thank you, sir.
5 gold bars. The answer, there were a couple of answers. I would have accepted any of them. The first, it was the first science fiction film to depict humans traveling faster than light in a starship of their own design. It was the first to be set in entirely on another planet in interstellar space. It was the first film with an entirely electronic musical score. And, of course, we can't forget Robbie the Robot. First robot with a distinct personality and bane of Lost in Space. So, the next question. In 1890, American bardolator Eugene Schifflin decided to do what with every kind of bird mentioned in Shakespeare? In 1890, American bardolator Eugene Schifflin decided to do what with every kind of bird mentioned in Shakespeare? Nate, what do you have?
He went out and found each one of those birds. He then captured them, had them taxidermied, and cosplayed them as Shakespeare.
Cosplay poultry.
Yep.
All right. Marie, what do you have?
The first part of Nate's answer was correct in that he did go out and find every single one of these birds. Instead of, taxidermying them and stuffing them, he just took one single feather, and from each of these individual species of birds, that feather is now part of the original Shakespeare folio, referenced where the bird is referenced.
All right. So it's included, feathers and all.
Steve, near the original folio.
Near the original.
I think if I remember correctly, our boy Eugene famously went out into the wild and all the various places where these birds are from, went and found these birds, enjoyed their song, enjoyed everything about them, and then went home and wrote a Yelp review about each one.
Yelp review. Flamingo, 0 stars, would not recommend. Molly, what do you have?
So what he actually did was he was a gastroenterologist and really loved gastronomer.
Gastronomer. That's when you look in the spelly with a telescope hoping to find the sun.
During a colonoscopy.
He's a butt doctor. He's a proctologist. No.
This fecal matter looks like Orion's belt.
Wrong, Eugene. But no, he really loved food. Okay. And so these birds are very exotic, very unique. The really interesting thing about all of them is that they have different size, colored, and textures of eggs. So he went out, collected each one, put them in a little basket, brought them home to his husband, and his husband then whipped up the world's best omelet you've ever had.
Wow.
Collected all of their eggs for an omelet. Now, the correct answer is he actually imported them all to America. Molly was very close. She just deviated into food rather than invasive species.
That's
Dave,
usually
how would
what
you
I
like
do.
to score?
I should have done that first, right? I'm not sure Yelp. I think Yelp was a George Bernard Shaw thing.
Oh, god damn it! You're right. I mixed them up.
And Nate is right on with cosplay. That was exactly it.
All right. How would you like to score that?
It wasn't the best round, so I'm only going to give him 2 gold bars.
2 gold
enough.
bars with his 14 rupees. All right, the
Honesty.
final question. Even though there was no standard spelling for the English language in his time, Shakespeare never seemed to do what correctly? Even though there was no standard spelling for the English language in his time, Shakespeare never seemed to do what correctly? Steve, what do you got?
Describe a colonoscopy. He tried on many occasions. We mentioned this earlier, Much Ado About Nothing. There's that whole colonoscopy scene. And he really struggled to kind of grasp the concept of future technology for putting a camera up a man's ass. And it's disappointing because, doctors, there could have been years of doctors having this knowledge if Shakespeare had just figured it out. He would send tree branches up there. He would send snakes. He would send, the hand of an old woman, but never a camera. And unfortunately, that really kind of stunted the development of medical equipment for generations.
Gives a new meaning to the phrase, something wicked this way comes. Nate, what do you
Nice.
Well, so there was no standard English, spelling, but there were agreements, social norms, and one that's been around forever is there. The different variations that he just couldn't get it right.
Homonyms.
Yeah. He just couldn't get it right. That and isn't, basically when there's supposed to be an apostrophe, he didn't get it, and he just blamed it on allergies.
Damn allergies.
Strong
All
finish.
right. Molly, what do you have?
It was a real struggle for him. Something that he did not like to have people point out, but people caught on, and he was ridiculed in the street. He was kicked out of bars. He was disowned by the brothel. And it was really disappointing for him. He actually went into a very, very deep depression because of this. And it was the fact that he could never spell his name correctly. Every time he wrote it down, it was a different spelling. And people would be like, wait, is this by Shakespeare? Dude, is this you? And, he'd have to be like, yeah, it's me. What do you mean? He's like, well, you spelled it E-A-R here, and then you spelled it A-I-R here. So it was a tough time.
Could not spell his name correctly, got him tossed out of the brothel. Marie, what's your answer?
Well, sometimes he spelt it correctly and sometimes he didn't. It's one word specifically, O-V-E-R. And sometimes he would just leave out the V and people would be like, am I supposed to go, so people weren't sure if they were supposed to go over there or they were supposed to go, But the iambic pentameter eventually caught on, and we now know how to pronounce it correctly. But of the time, people were very perplexed.
All right, so like the first text speech.
Yeah.
It takes too long to type that letter. I'm not putting it in. So we have Steve with describe a colonoscopy, Nate with trouble with homonyms, Molly with having trouble spelling his own name, and Marie with forgetting to put in letters. The correct answer was Molly.
Yes.
He had trouble spelling his own name correctly.
Sure did.
So, Dave, how would you like to score?
Well, I knew the answer to that, and when Molly piped in, I was very happy. So I'm going to give Molly 10 gold bars, but I'm going to give Marie 5 rupees because she used the word iambic pentameter.
Wow.
I saw that.
Is that one word or two words?
Use the two words together.
Cool. I was genuinely curious.
The term.
Cool. Thanks.
So, at the end of this segment, we have, with no points, our reigning champion, Steve Cornett.
Let's go.
With 10 points, Marie. We have Molly with 15, and in the lead with 16 points, former reigning champion, Nate Green.
Oh my goodness, if you thought this was fun, you don't want to miss the upcoming episode featuring visiting professor David Hanright. Learn more about this performing and visual arts teacher at Thornton Academy. He's an artist, actor, comedy playwright, a whole slew of other very impressive things, and an all-around really funny and swell guy. Catch it on the next episode of Balderdash Academy.
Thank you for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon. You can find us on your favorite podcast service as Balderdash Academy.
Yeah.